Okay, we are mostly live here. Okay. Hi, Cassie Solomon. Welcome to On the Front Burner. How are you?
I'm fine. It's nice to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me, Angela.
Sure. Where are you calling from?
I am located in the suburbs outside of Philadelphia,
Awesome. Okay,
where we
very
had a
good.
very beautiful snowstorm 2 days ago. So,
Nice. I'm in DC. We also had that snowstorm, but we probably didn't handle it as well as Philadelphia did because we had a 2 hour school delay today. So I feel like
and I always say in DC, if you get a half an inch of snow, the entire city freaks out and shuts down. Um,
well, I like to
whereas,
say that it's a we're in cahoots with the grocery stores and the weather people because those are the two that benefit from any sort of storm. So yes, okay. So tell us the name of your company and what your organization does.
Thank you. The name of the company is the New Group Consulting. Was kind of a random name with a cool logo that I invented 18 years ago when I founded it. And I do organizational change consulting,
Mm. Yep.
mostly for a very eclectic group of clients, I must say. So everything from large nonprofits, academic medical centers, to high growth startups in California.
Got it. And when you say organizational change, what would that entail? If I'm running a business, how do I know that I need your services?
Well, I always joke that when I say that at a cocktail party, people want to know if I will come in and do their closets. And I'm like, no, I wish I was that kind of organizational person because then my closets would be so much better. But I'm not. That's generally speaking, it's because a leader in the company is either not happy with the way something is going and they need a transformation of some kind. Um, I say that's kind of full stop. If your company is going fabulously well and everything is clicking on all cylinders, you don't call an organizational change consultant. You call us when things are not going the way you want them to go.
Gotcha. And do you find that a lot of times you know, we've grown, and we haven't really paid attention to what's happening around us? The bigger corporations I worked for, I felt that way. Like it was like super growth, and all of a sudden everybody stopped and was like, the right people in the right places? How does this?
I think one of my favorite kinds of clients are high growth companies, and they tend to find me, in addition to just starting my consulting firm,
Hmm.
which behaves kind of like a normal firm where a lot of word of mouth bring clients to me. I started a website about 10 years ago devoted to the project management tool RACI,
Okay.
RACI. And it's in pretty wide use because it's been around since the mid 1950s. But people that are looking online for RACI resources are usually there because they're having frustrations with the way their company makes decisions. So they might
Mm.
do an employee engagement survey and come back and say, uh-oh, our employees are really unhappy with the way we make decisions here. Or they might be saying new product development is not going fast enough.
Mm.
Everything is accelerating around us. We think we're dysfunctional around our decision making. And so I end up getting found through some digital marketing efforts, which I think are pretty rudimentary, to be honest.
Yeah.
But really interesting companies kind of come in through that door, and often it's because they're growing. If you think about a high
Hmm.
growth company, often the founders are kind of used to making all the decisions, like a
Yes.
small business, and then they grow, and that becomes really a bottleneck to their growth. And often they hire an executive from a larger company who's already used RACI, and they come in the door and say, "Oh, wait a minute, this is not
Right.
working as it should, and we've got to get some RACI stuff in here." And then they find me.
Gotcha. And then they find you. And and of all that you said it's a eclectic mix, what was the moment where a particular business came to you and you were like, I did not expect that type of business or that you realized that this could be for other types of industries? Like how did that
Well,
come
because
about?
I do so much in kind of large, complicated nonprofit, university, academic medical centers.
Mm.
So I think for me, the big surprises have been the tech companies. There have been some
Oh,
big tech
interesting.
companies that have decided they have to speed up, and they've gotten big, and they're their size is getting in the way of their agility, and then they start looking at decision making and empowerment issues, and they find me. So,
Right. Is there is there a particular industry that you came up through that you feel most comfortable with, or how did you decide to start a consulting? You're 18 years in. How did you decide to start this?
well, I was at a consulting firm initially for 16 years, and I
Okay.
always tell this story because it's true, but a little bit cute. Is that I went to the president. I was, just coming out of graduate school, and I'm a woman, and I'm blonde, and I'm like this junior consultant. And I said, look, I really have to specialize in something because I need to present myself as a little bit more credible and with more expertise. And he very carefully explained to me that that is not what we do at our firm. We are generalists. We don't specialize here. And then I spent the next 7 years in healthcare. So I did kind of grow up through healthcare.
Got it.
But I've been very lucky because I know women are not supposed to say they're lucky, but I think I really was just lucky that, when COVID hit and a lot of the innovation work I was doing in healthcare really just halted. It's been, the industry went through so much during that period. And then after COVID with staffing shortages and rising costs and supply chain and all that stuff, I had moved into financial services. So I spent the COVID years in banking,
Right.
and in 2007 when I started this company, that was a terrible time to be in financial services because of the
Yeah.
crash. That's when I was in healthcare. So I seem to always miss the crisis.
Good. Knock on wood. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and also there's something to be said too about being able to be flexible like that. Like I think sometimes people we want to specialize, but then we become so precious on that thing that we lose sight of all the other opportunities that are there. That my background, I think I'd mentioned, was retail, food, hospitality, and during COVID, somebody came to me who was a psychiatrist. She's also a small business owner. She had 10, 15 employees. She had um, two offices, and was kind of like, well, now what do we do? Like we used to get referrals from schools.
Yeah.
That's not happening anymore. And I think that was my moment where I was like, well, a business owner they all have similar needs. I'm not going to tell her how to be a psychotherapist, but I can help her with getting her message out, figuring out what she needs to do, and that type of thing. And so, yeah, I think COVID taught us all a lot of interesting factors that apply elsewhere.
Yeah, it definitely
It's
taught me that you can create group cohesion on Zoom, which I never did before. And I was like, all right, let's do this strategic planning project in Colorado with a bunch
Yeah,
of people that are never going to be in the same room. And
yeah,
remarkably, we were able to make it work.
yeah. And I mean, presumably we grew up in the office, the before hybrid, before remote work, time period. How have you found that in these recent years, the online versus in
Well, in
real
some
life?
ways, I started working out of my home office in 2007.
Right.
And I went into this chapter of being an entrepreneur with this. I had read Tim Ferriss's The 4 Hour Work Week. And so I was like,
Yeah.
well, that's a great idea. I'm going to have a completely virtual team. And I set out with that as my vision. And then the joke was I hired all these people that lived in my neighborhood. So it wasn't so global, but it was always virtual. So
Yeah.
I was already set up, when COVID hit, and was already able to work pretty comfortably from my home office, and my team was virtual. So I was able to avoid some of those terrible transitions. Also, my kids were older, so I didn't
Hmm.
have to juggle young kids trying to learn online and a
Yes.
business out of my house. Those people are saints. That was a really
Yeah.
difficult
Yeah. And I think
challenge.
during that time, I think we saw a little bit more behind the scenes how people, just people are human. I kind of like that. You saw. I think there's a lot of videos of like cats going across people's
Yeah,
computer screens or kids walking in the room. And
yeah,
there's something about that time that was just like it was rough, but also you saw people in a little
yeah.
bit of a different light that maybe are always put together. And it's like you're not put together. None of us are
Well, no,
as put
I
together.
think this hybrid world still gives us those opportunities.
Yeah,
I still see my clients' kids from time to time, and it's just wonderful. It's great.
yeah. Do you think putting your consultant hat on when you work with organizations, are you getting any kind of sense of this idea of everyone must be in the office or everyone should be remote, or how are you feeling as you talk to leaders?
I think it's really company dependent, Angela. I know a lot of
Yeah,
people are struggling with the demands to return to the office because we kind of got used to managing our lives the way I manage my life as a small
yeah,
business owner, that works from at home. I'm just going to run downstairs and put in that load of laundry. I'll be right back.
yep,
But
absolutely.
I have one client right now. They made a very thoughtful decision that they needed to bring people in because it's a healthcare provider organization. They had lost so much of their culture over
Mm-hmm.
the COVID years, and they needed to rebuild it. So they've been
Yeah,
pretty clear with their new hires that you have to be in the office 4 days a week because we have to be together.
yeah,
And this is obviously non-clinical people because the clinical people were always in person, except for
right,
telemedicine, which is wonderful, but under threat from the reimbursement gods. So,
right. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting. Sometimes I'll meet with younger folks who are like, maybe just getting out of college and they'll say, oh, I don't want to go into an office. And it's hard for me to say, but there are some benefits to the office. They're
yeah.
just, for those of it, and there are definitely some downfalls and some wastes of time and the commutes and all that kind of stuff. So the more, I don't know, if you can find a flexible position, I think you're better off. I mean, actually, somebody who's a graphic design person I was working with, and he was saying, I'm kind of liking going to the office 3 days a week. It's like I'm getting more done. I see the person that I'm working with, and he was saying he was so against it. But once he went in, he was like, okay, there's some upside to being in the same space. So that culture piece is hard, though. I think there's a lot of people too who are just like, I don't need work culture. Just give me my paycheck. It's like, yeah, but if you're spending 40 plus hours on a job, you might want to, and that might be because I came from a very highly culture focused company when I was with Whole Foods. So I think we were, probably leaned way too far one way when it came to culture. So that's interesting.
No, I think it's very hard. I did a stint of work in the last couple of years with radiologists, and
Mm,
the sort of joke about radiologists is they're very introverted and they work in the dark and they have these huge, monitors where they're reading their images, and they've all moved to reading remotely, which has opened up incredible opportunities for some people. Like you can read across
yeah,
the country with no
yeah,
problem, but it's been really hard on their work cultures.
yeah. That's a tough one. So 18 years in, what's your favorite thing about running a business? Aside from
Well,
being able to run downstairs and do the laundry.
I really think it would be difficult for me to go back, and it's I sort of joke like, well, my boss is a bitch and she makes me work all the time, but actually, I sort of collect a series of things that say it is my circus and they are my monkeys. Because if I don't like something, it's my fault that it's there and I can change it. I can't change it in the moment because I have
Yeah,
obligations and commitments, but I can look out 6 months and say I want this to be different, and it will be
yeah,
different. So
yeah,
that freedom and that um, kind of agency is really very precious. And now I have a lot of friends now who are starting to talk about retirement, and they're like, "Well, when are you going to retire?" And I said, "Well, if I had a job and I had to get up and be somewhere at 9 o'clock in the morning 5 days a week, and then come home and work until 11, like a lot of people
uh-huh,
do, I would probably
yeah,
be all about retiring. But I'm not at all about retiring because this is mine, and I can, make it what I want."
yeah. You built it to be the way you want it to be, and then when you can, that's what I love too, is that I can look at my week ahead and sort of move things the way I want them and figure out, and I actually have a client now that I'm allowed. I have keys to the office. I can go into an office when I want to, and we schedule so we're there together. But it's so nice sometimes where I'm just like, this is a week that I'm going to have an office day, and I'm going to brush my hair and
Yeah.
show up at the
Put
office.
on,
But I
see if
do,
my heels
yeah.
still fit.
Oh my
That
gosh,
I,
we
I
had
think
a
it's
yeah.
a
That's
it's
so
a pretty
funny.
good blend right now because I
Yeah.
travel to my clients. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I get the benefits of in person and travel and dressing up in my suits and all those things. And then I also get the benefits of working right here from at home.
Right. I definitely don't have suits anymore. I have a jacket skirt combo, but no suits anymore. I got rid. But I did. We did have a board meeting last week, and I was like, oh, I've got to get my shoes out and dust those off and look presentable. But I think that's most of the entrepreneurs I talk to, that's the thing that they all have in common. It's this, yeah, you're going to be, if it doesn't work, it's on me. If it works, it's also kind of on me. But that idea that, I built it the way I wanted it to be, even though there was probably, setbacks or things that happened that you were just like, whoa, that did not work at all. But it was all on you and not somebody else's responsibility. I think it's a big deal.
One of my daughters has now started her own business, and she's just going through. She's about 2 years in. It's been really fun because the two of us get to talk about running our own business all the time.
Yeah.
But she's taken a big risk, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, this may not work." And I said, "But you're going to learn so much, and you're going to take a big risk, and that's what you're supposed to do. So don't worry about it.
It may not work, and it may work. It may work great.
Yeah,
Maybe
jury's still out.
There's no there's no crystal ball. I taught a high school class today on it's actually a professional etiquette class, but they wanted to know about networking, interviews, and then salary. And so I kind of did a little bit in that order. I was like, okay, you did the resume already, talked about networking, we talked about interview technique, but they really wanted to jump to salary. And I feel like that's a hard thing to teach teenagers, because right now they're getting paid by the hour, right? Any job that they have is, it's a customer service position. So I was trying to explain salaries, and it's interesting because, they're also in an entrepreneurship class. So I was trying to balance the two. It's like, well, you're taking an entrepreneurship class. Some of this might not necessarily matter to you right now because of where you are in your life, but it is interesting to talk to high school kids about these things. I don't think I was in that spot at all. I mean, I had jobs, but I didn't think of them as my future career, So.
No, same here, although I worked for my dad, and my dad had his own company. So I think I had a little bit of a vision of what it was like to have your own company. And with its ups and downs, there were plenty of ups and downs.
So right out of, high school, you went to college right away?
I did. I went right away. I went from Los Angeles, where I was raised, to the East Coast, and I went to Yale, and so that was kind of fun. And at the time, my high school boyfriend was in New York City, and I spent a lot of my weekends in New York City. His alma mater, they said, "Oh, we're giving you an honorary degree because you're around so much."
Nice.
So I had a nice combination of Yale and New Haven and New York City when I was in college.
And what did you think you wanted to do out of college?
Well, my first career is very different than what I'm doing now. I went into theater management. Was
Nice.
really fortunate to land in some fantastic places. Got back to California, worked at the Old Globe in San Diego as their development director. So I was in fundraising, and that turned out to be actually pretty helpful because I did a lot of planning work. I worked with their board, and then I went back and got an MBA. It was like I went native. I went to the board level, and I went back and got an MBA, and that's what brought me to Philadelphia.
That's amazing. And okay, so if we go, when you said you worked for your dad, what kind of work did you do?
Oh, he was a film producer in Hollywood.
Okay.
So,
cool.
Yeah. I just went back to a reunion of my high school, Beverly Hills High, which was 90210. Very fun.
I was going to say, like, didn't you have plenty of celebrity type folks went to high school there?
Some,
that's for a different conversation.
Yeah.
I love it. And it's funny because I think of, like I think I told you when we were chatting earlier, sometimes those early, like you said, your dad had a business, so you kind of saw that entrepreneurship side, even if they did it differently in a different industry. My dad was a carpenter. He had my mom doing all the office stuff. That's just kind of how it worked. And when you were doing theater management, I mean, that's a lot of organizing people. That's a lot of figuring out how things work. how they don't work. So it
On the
certainly
on the
informs
production
your
side,
next level.
I've often
Yeah,
hired people from the production side, and what I say about that is they really get deadlines. Opening
right.
night is not something you can postpone, and you've got
No,
to have your technical rehearsal ready, and your actors have to be ready, and the costumes have to be ready. All those pieces have to be ready, and so they just kind of come with that discipline baked in, and you don't
yeah,
have to explain that to them. So
that's that's so amazing. I love that. My brother worked in politics. We're in D.C. So, and one of the things when Arnold Schwarzenegger became governor of California, he started getting books on film production and character development because he was like, this guy's doing things in a very different way than a regular politician would do. It's because he's an actor, and
interesting.
he, every rally, my brother would he just wanted to observe and see how he did things, and he was like, huh, this is like a production. This is
Yeah,
not like some, folks from DC just put up a podium and a flag and go for it. He was like,
yeah,
this is really elevated. So I think you can learn from all these industries. And if you own a business, that's always my advice. Where can you learn? Is it another industry? Is it another type of business that you can kind of cull from? And film and theater, I think, are, yeah, they know how to get stuff done for sure.
well, and it's
So,
come full circle because about 2 years ago, I was called to work at Juilliard. I was like, wow, I'm back at Juilliard in New York after all these years. And then this past year, I had a client in New York who has a very deep interest in theater and has won some Tony Awards. And so I was sort of like dusted off my theater background and said, yeah, actually, we know a lot of the same people. And um, I've,
that's awesome.
I've been part of that world. For a while after I graduated from with my MBA, I never mentioned it though, because I was like getting made fun of, by
Right.
these kind of like really hardcore industry guys, like, oh, she was in theater. So I just kind of made it really quiet for a long time.
Little did they know it was your secret weapon behind the scenes. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you don't want to hear about it, but I'm still using those those skills and those techniques.
It was
And
when I was a baby consultant, I worked for the New York City subway system,
oh,
and I'll never forget. I got on, and it was fun because I'm in my little MBA, blue suit and my little navy blue pumps, and I'm like picking my way over the third rail in the maintenance barns. But I got on a conference call once from the office, and I just happened to get on as they were saying something about the academic eggheads from Philadelphia. And I said, "Hi, I'm your academic egghead from Philadelphia." Anyway, we had a lot of fun together, but they were the source of some of the teasing.
that's right. That's amazing. I do think sometimes we look back at those things and it's like that was a moment in time. It stuck with you. Good or bad. So, is there a role that you've had in your career that you feel like is like that was you talked about talking to your boss about finding your niche, your specialty. Like, are there moments like that where you feel like you had to kind of create your own path a little bit?
I mean, I think if you're in business for yourself, you're constantly creating your own path.
Mm-hmm.
The changes happening in the world around us are pretty dramatic right now. So
Mm-hmm.
that's just accelerating.
Yeah.
In 2016, I started doing a piece of work with a client about the introduction of new technology in healthcare. And that was
Okay.
really kind of a revelation because I had not studied new technology until then. It's mostly studied people and change and conflict resolution and all those things. But I kind of fell in love with studying artificial intelligence and trying to understand the future of work and all of those topics. And we ran that program for 3 years. And
Yeah.
then COVID hit. And then I took some of what I learned over into banking and did that
Yeah.
for the next 5 years.
What
But I
anything in your
became I became a futurist, which is
uh,
kind of a fun thing to say at a cocktail party. It also stops people in their tracks. They want
I,
to know
s-
what
I was
kind of
just
they want to
I
know
was
what
literally
stock they
just going to
should
ask
buy.
about
Literally,
it.
yeah.
I was
What
literally just
stock
going to
should
ask
I buy? I'm
about
like,
it.
I'm sorry, I can't help there. That's not what futurists
It's
actually
not
do.
that it's not
Those
that
are
kind of
fortune
future.
tellers, not futurists. There's a
Right.
difference. Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about being a futurist because I did see that in your bio, and I was just about to ask a little about that and about your book. So start with the
Oh,
futurist.
thanks. Um, I think that futurists have a set of techniques and a way of looking at the world that allows people, it's often to do scenario planning, basically. That
Mm-hmm.
sounds pretty old fashioned, but it's a great tool to apply when everything in the environment is changing so rapidly. Kind of don't want one plan. You want an array of plans that make you agile so you can adjust as things change around you. So it's not about knowing exactly what is going to happen. It's about helping you prepare for a variety of possibilities.
Gotcha.
And getting used to the idea. And one of the really fun things that happened at that point is I was working with a national group of bank regulators. Sounds incredibly boring, but it's not. And we did this wonderful strategic planning retreat, which happened to be in South Dakota, in the middle of a state park with a herd of buffalo that literally came and like closed us down for a morning because we couldn't get into the meeting room. There was a herd of bison in the front of it. It was a great place to study the future. And we did, 10-year scenarios, and they were wonderful. They were really creative. And one of the things they said was, someday, and this sounds like crazy talk, but someday we're not going to examine banks by going into the banks. We're going to do it all remotely through our computers. And 6 months later, COVID hit, because this was 2019. And they all called me and they said, oh my God, this was our 10-year off scenario, and now we're all doing it. And we're not as shocked. We're not as ill prepared because we really spent some time imagining that.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing, and that's really a great thing to do with companies, just to kind of have them put their future hat on so they can really think through. Because I think there's people that get a little lost in the day to day, and they want to say, well, God, if we keep going at this rate, what's going to happen? And they don't really have the time to sit in their day to day job and concern themselves with that. So having some place where you can kind of go and be like, I've been thinking about this for 2 years and I don't know what to do with it, but it's bothering me, and let's put it out and see what's possible. That's interesting. And so am I right that you wrote a book?
I did. I'm a co-author of a book with a Wharton colleague of mine. My MBA is from Wharton. And it's his change model. So I can tell everybody how brilliant it is and not sound too arrogant. It's a systems change model. And so we use it quite a lot in strategic planning and in this kind of cultural change work that I do. And it's a great model. It's a great read. It's called Leading Successful Change. And he's the first author is Gregory Shea and Cassie Solomon. And they came back and asked us to revise it in 2020. So I was like, note to self, try not to publish a book in February of 2020, a month before a global pandemic. That's super bad timing for publishing a book. But
again, you're a futurist, not a fortune teller.
Not a fortune teller,
you
right?
Could not have known.
Didn't get that one right. But my poor little second edition is now kind of edged up in the Amazon algorithm, so it is now the first one that you see. For a long time, you saw the 2013 one, and we were going crazy. We couldn't figure out what to do to get the new book up, and they just said, well, there's nothing you can do. It's the algorithm. You're helpless. So, oh well.
We are helpless to the algorithms. That's like the story of our lives. But I will put a comment in when we share this so that people can find your book.
Actually, I want to go back to scenario planning for a minute, because I think that it's definitely a technique that we can use as small business owners, but frequently don't. And I just revisited some material from Edward Hallowell, who writes a lot about ADHD. He wrote a great book not too long ago called Crazy Busy. And he has this great framework of executive level work, which is that kind of go to the mountaintop and think about the future and where do I want to be. And then management work, which is kind of structuring the work that other people are going to help you do. And then there's kind of just doing tasks. And I looked at it for a client of mine, and I thought, wow, this is really good for me as a small business owner, because we get so caught up in doing tasks that we aspire to manage the work and delegate it to other people. But that executive level is where you can draw back and think about what you want and where do you want to be in 5 years and where do you want to be in 10 years and how do you build up to that. I don't think we do enough of that.
I agree. As a small business owner and as someone who works mostly with smaller businesses, it's one of those things when I jump in to help a company that they they don't love it at first because I'm sort of like, don't worry about today. Like we gotta like. I also usually kind of go a little in reverse. Like how and why did you start this company? Like, are we still on the mission and the vision that we had, or is it different? But they always feel like it's a little bit fluffy versus
Right,
you know,
right.
this is part of your strategy is to
Yeah.
take a step, take a beat, and let's see what's going on. Let's see where we want to go versus those tasks. I think people do get really it's you know it's there's some kind of joy in the tasks because you know how to do them and you're like
Yeah.
check 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 check. Whereas the big scenario planning is amorphous to people,
Yeah,
right?
and a little bit intimidating. And then you're thinking, well, how big should I dream? And can I make that happen? And can I get there? Um,
Yeah. And I feel like just dream really big. Like what's the worst that happens? I mean, you don't want to be like, and then I'm going to have a unicorn as a pet. It's like, okay, that might not happen, but we can still have those big scenarios that are possible.
each
I
one
think if
is a
you're not
unicorn as
talking
a
about them.
business.
Right, exactly, exactly. Um, yeah, that's so interesting. And do you ever work with smaller businesses? I mean, because I want to put your information out there and say,
I,
hey, you know,
I'm more high growth businesses than
high
really
growth.
small
Okay,
businesses.
good. All
Um,
right, let's do it.
so when they get to that growing pains stage and everything that worked previously isn't working anymore,
Yeah.
that's the moment. That's the
Yep.
moment I love.
That's a great moment. Um, is there anything okay, not as a futurist, but as a crystal ball? Actually, it's funny we're saying this because I spoke with Denise, who we both know. So anyone who's
Right.
watching it, I'm a cheerleader for DCA Virtual, and Cassie also uses them. So then we
Also a
connected to a
cheerleader.
lot. Also
Yes.
cheerleader. Um, and I asked her to go through her crystal ball for 2026. So, do you have any words of wisdom, tips, ideas, things that are like you talked a little about AI before and you know, people are either super embracing it or panicked about AI. Is there anything that you're seeing in your crystal business, you know, anything
So I
that's
think I've talked to a number of people, and my favorite book at the moment about AI is by Richard Susskind, and
uh-huh.
it's called How to Think About AI. I found him in 2016, and his first book. Well, it's not his first book, but the first book I read is 450 pages long. And if you want the abstract, you can reach out to me because I abstracted it for clients, and
Oh,
it's
nice.
much more uh, manageable than the book.
Yeah.
But it's a brilliant book called The Future of the
Mm-hmm.
Professions. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
he says that there are 6 theories about AI, and I won't go into all of them. But the first one, when I encounter it, just makes me angry. I think it's just ignorant, and I encounter it a fair amount. Like, oh, this is nothing special. This is
Mm-hmm.
just software, right? We've been through
Mm-hmm.
this before in the 90s. This is just software. And I think, oh, you're missing the point here. This is not just software. Um, so that's kind of the lowest level prediction.
Mm-hmm.
I think even if this economy is an AI bubble, AI is carrying the entire American economy right now. And if it's a bubble and it bursts, we're going to be in a world of hurt. And that's not going to be any fun. But I still believe that AI is going to be transformative. And it's going to be transformative much faster than people are predicting. His second theory is generative AI, like ChatGPT and LLMs.
Mm-hmm.
They're about as far as this is going to go. This is
Got it.
this is what we got, and that's not my belief at all. I think it
Mm.
is still in its infancy. I have a
Mm-hmm.
slide that when I'm teaching this stuff, that has a picture of the old Motorola bag phone, which weighed
Yeah.
something like 12 pounds, and
Right.
you had to charge it for an hour to get 6 minutes of talk time. And I
Mm-hmm.
always show that slide and I say, this is the bag phone,
Yeah.
everybody. It's not very good right now. If you put another chat bot in front of me on the computer, I'm going to scream. They're really stupid. And
Right.
you get some really wacky answers from ChatGPT.
Yep.
But it's a bag phone. And
Right.
it will become the smartphone within
It's not.
5 years.
It's not a smartphone yet, but within five
But
years, got
it
it.
will be. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny in this class today talking about the resumes with these students. It was, I said, look, I know you guys, you know, schools have policies around AI. They're all trying to figure it out. I said, look, you use ChatGPT to help with your resume. I said, but you better read that resume line for line. I was like, read it, have someone else read it. I was like, because the moment you're in an interview and they say, wow, 500 phone calls a day, tell me about that. And they're like, well, then I would just make something up. I'm like, nope. Because at that moment,
Yeah.
your whole expression is because you're going to be like, did I say that in my resume?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
whatever it is. And it's just like, it's so hard. It's so
But I
hard.
also
I
think
think
our
it's,
expectations of
yeah,
are changing pretty rapidly because when someone produces something with a typo or a bad word, I'm like, why aren't you using Grammarly? Like, what are you
right.
proofing yourself? That's not
Yeah,
that's not how we do that. Or someone
right.
will do research and I'll be like, why did you spend a half an hour researching that?
Right.
That's just not
Yeah.
necessary anymore. So I think we're
Use
pushing
the,
each other to be
right,
faster and better users of what's here now, let alone
right.
what's
Well, I say,
coming.
right, use the tool for some good. Like help yourself with it, but keep an eye on it. Make sure you're reading it. Make sure you understand what's going on there. But it's funny too. Like I wrote a blog post about this. Like I got a pretty bad series of emails that were definitely generated by some AI something. It was pulling from my website. I could see where even
Yeah.
particular language that I used was not super common, was sent back to me, and I just was like, this is not how you do it. Like if you're gonna do it,
Right.
I need you to proofread it. I
Yeah.
need you to make it because I don't know, and it could be that I'm old school. I'm just like, but it was a sales pitch too. It completely turned me off, and I was like, nope,
Well, I think it's the Economist's word of the year. This year is
slop,
slop,
slop.
SLOP, and it
Yes,
refers to this kind of regurgitation of language that's going on around us. And so, what I'm saying is, I don't want to
yeah,
contribute to the slop problem.
no,
And a lot of
no,
times people will come back and say, oh, I used ChatGPT and I wrote this for your website. And I'm like, that's not good enough. It's not
yeah,
interesting enough. It's not specific enough. It's just
right.
contributing to the slop. So,
Yeah, it doesn't have the charm and there's something missing and you can just tell. And sometimes it's okay. I'm like, well, it's a social media post. It's like fine, it'll do the trick. No big deal. But then if it's like written for the website or it's in your marketing materials or it's in your speech, it's like people start understanding that things just sound kind of funky. I don't
yeah,
know.
we'll give it
And then
2
maybe we'll
years
get
and then it won't sound like that
I
anymore.
was
So
just gonna
it just
say,
means you and I have
right.
not trained our
Yeah.
AIs as well as other people have because
Oh,
they
that
are
is true.
trainable. They can sound like you. I just haven't gotten there yet.
Do you ever feel though when you see something online that you're like, all right, now I gotta go research this and see if it's real. Like I'm constantly like,
Yeah.
all right, is this real? Now I gotta go
Yeah.
find out if it's real.
Yeah.
I'm so annoyed. That's what annoys me. It's like do I need to go research this? Do I have a friend that I can text and be like, yo, is this legit or do I need to do
Yeah,
further
no, it's
research?
when I went way down the rabbit hole with this stuff, Angela, and I
Yeah.
started studying the previous industrial revolutions because this is the
Okay.
fourth one, according
Right.
to the World Economic Forum. And you can go back and
Yep.
especially reading the steam to electricity
Uh
revolution.
huh.
And, they were just really profound shifts in
Hmm.
society, in work, in education, in where people lived. And the prediction is that we're going to telescope all of that change into about 15 years, like 1 5.
Wow.
So part of this, post-truth environment is part of what we're experiencing as a society. And I don't have any prediction about where it's going. I just know why it's happening, which makes me
Right.
a little bit less anxious than some of my friends. So,
Well, that's good. You're the person that I'm going to call then. I'm going to say, Cassie, should I chill out or do I need to freak out yet? Just let me
well, I
know.
think it'll probably be a little bit of both, Angela, depending on how this all comes
Depending on the
down.
topic.
Yeah.
It's true. It is true. It's a wild time. And I keep doing this like, well, it's just a couple of weeks left in 2025, as if 2026 is magically going to be something
Calm
different. I'm
down.
like, no, it's
That's
not.
not the prediction. Nope.
Nope,
I don't think
it is
so.
not.
Um, so it's kind of a buckle up kind of time.
Yep. So that's a good place for us to, get to the end of our interview. When you are feeling, whether it's the stress of the world or work or outside forces, what's something that you do that keeps you kind of grounded, brings you back? Anything
I
in
drink.
particular?
No, kidding.
I mean, for some people that is. I eat. It's fine.
It's yeah, no. Honestly, if like your head is just about to explode and you've had a
Yeah.
crazy week, it's a coping mechanism. I
Yeah.
think, at the end of the day, we're mammals, we love each other, we love hugs, we love our dogs, we love cuddling up, we love being in nature. All of those things that kind of are grounding for us, I think really are very important. There's a beautiful snowy scene out my window today, so I'm not spending as much time in nature as I would be if I was in
Yeah.
Florida. But
Yeah.
I think things, you got to step away and restore your equilibrium, and I think those are the ways that we do it.
Yeah, definitely. And I have the same sometimes, and especially being able to, work from home. Like I do take that moment to, well, I didn't step outside much this week because it's been a little cold, but like
Yeah,
to open the door and get that burst of fresh air and just to get away from the screen and
yeah,
all the things.
yeah.
Because, and especially if you're working from home and there's nobody else around, it's like, it can be very isolating. So I feel like I need that break,
Oh
that
my
just
gosh,
people to
during
stop
COVID,
me.
I was like one of the people who kept going to the grocery store because I had to get out and I had to have an interaction with someone. And I could
Right,
do that every day if I kept my list short. So I would
right.
go to the grocery store just to have contact. And that was how I
Yeah,
kept it
it
together.
is. That's good. That's great. Anything we didn't cover? Anything I should have asked you about? Anything you want to tell the people about business, running a business, running their business? Anything?
Only that I started an adventure about 3 months ago with a company called Enhanced AI, so I'll plug them. And I'm building an AI agent for my clients and my business. And boy, has that been an incredible education. So, I've been studying this stuff and teaching this stuff, but like rolling up your sleeves and trying to build something with it
Mm-hmm.
is really a great experience, and I highly recommend it if you can figure out how to do it. There's a lot of free resources out there, and Enhanced AI was very reasonable. But I don't have any idea if that's going to be one of those big risks like my daughter took, which is going to fall flat on its face. But I knew enough going in to say, I'm just going to take a risk, and if nothing else,
Yeah,
I'll learn a lot. And I have learned a
yeah.
lot. And now in 2026, we'll see about taking it to market.
Okay, very cool. That's fantastic. We'll keep an eye out for that. Awesome. Well, have a
Thanks.
great rest of the year. I think you gave us a lot of good things to think about. I'm freaking out a little less. I'm not much of a freak out person, but I feel a little. I feel like if you're on the cutting edge of what's happening in the future, I feel pretty good. So,
Well,
thank you
thank
so
you. I do
much.
think that
Hmm.
it's going. I don't know if it's going to be all right, but it's going to be interesting. I'm sure of that.
It's going to be interesting. Maybe that'll be the title of this.